It's almost this discipline. It's this law in their life that everybody has something to teach you, but it's your responsibility to find out what that is.
Hello and welcome to Pillars of Wealth Creation, where we talk about creating financial success with a special focus on business and real estate. I'm your host, Todd Dexheimer. Now, let's get to it. Hey, welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Todd Dexheimer, and excited to have Matt Aitchison on the show. Matt, how are you doing today?
Doing good, brother. Happy to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to have you on. I've been listening to, or I've listened to a lot of your episodes on the Millionaire Mindcast podcast. And you told me before we hit record that you've been doing it for 10 years. That's a long time. So
Yeah.
congratulations on that. Over 1,000
Thanks,
episodes.
man.
That's awesome.
Yeah, coming up on 10 years, over 1,000 episodes. I think probably 400 or 500 interviews, and then obviously, other,
Yeah.
types of solo episodes and all that kind of stuff. But it's been a fun journey for sure. It's definitely bared a lot of fruit. It's, expanded me in a lot of good ways, challenges. And obviously, podcasting has kind of taken on a whole new meaning in life form over the last few years. So it's been fun to be a part of that journey.
Yeah, definitely. Give our listeners a bit of those who don't know you, give our listeners a bit about your background.
Yeah, I got involved in real estate entrepreneurship kind of right out of college. It actually
Hmm.
really started for me when I was like 12, 13. My mom started taking me to real estate investing and kind of entrepreneurial personal development conferences when I was really young. And she was, trying to kind of break out of corporate America and always was looking for a side hustle. And I remember being at a real estate investment conference super young and seeing these people up on stage talking about flipping houses and six-figure checks, and I was like, man, that's cool. Obviously the money was a big driver
Oh yeah,
and
at 12
excitement
for
when you're
sure.
young, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
at the same time, getting exposed to that kind of personal development world early was great.
Hmm.
But it, kind of, was always, an afterthought being a teenager, right? And just being focused on sports and friends and school and things like that. I actually got expelled my senior year of high school
Oh, wow.
and kind of hit a little turbulence there. And that was, probably one of the best things that ever happened to me in terms of kind of facing some hardship and,
Hmm.
really trying to kind of recollect myself and realign with, what kind of future I wanted to create for myself. And I ended up working for a guy for about 3.5 years in Santa Barbara. I went to school at UCSB down in Southern California. And that was my real first kind of exposure to entrepreneurship. He kind of ran his own insurance office. And, I got on, I think I was making $8 an hour cold calling for him. And I worked my way up to kind of being his right hand guy and started, learning more of the side of business ownership and being a small business owner and, just being your own boss, having no ceiling on what you can make financially, still being able to drive and make an impact in, certain areas of business or, your community through that vehicle. And he wanted me to take over kind of his book of business, and he was starting to look at retiring. And I really didn't want to get into insurance. So I moved back to Sacramento, and this was back in 2010 when, the financial crisis was, foreclosures
Just
were
ripped them.
everywhere in Northern
Yeah.
California. And I was interviewing, with my nice expensive piece of paper for jobs for 35, 40, $50,000 a year. And I'm like, man, this is not gonna, get me to where I want to go.
Yeah.
And at that time, I still didn't know where I wanted to go. I just knew that it, wasn't aligned with that vision and that path. And I came across a Craigslist ad, believe it or not. Real estate mentor seeks real estate mentee. I ended up working for this guy for a year for free, learning how to flip houses,
Hmm.
essentially doing everything from acquisition to project management to disposition. And he was, clipping 50, 60, 70 grand a year, or I'm sorry, a house. And, I think in that year we'd flipped over 120 houses that first year.
Wow.
And I was going, man, I think I can do this, which ultimately led me to finding my very first flip after, months of tacking up bandit signs all over neighborhoods and getting a bunch of calls, to take them down and to get out of the neighborhood. I found the one house, and it was actually the kind of infamous cat lady house, over 100 stray cats. I think I found two dead raccoons inside this woman's house. It was a hoarder's house, but I ended up netting $106,000 at the age of 21 on that,
Oh, what a
for
win,
working a year
man.
for free. And I was like, this is going to be the path. So long story short, that got me into kind of real estate. I started flipping more houses and built up my own flipping company. Started partnering in a construction company, started building up a real estate team and kind of having, those different verticals in real estate. And over the next 4 or 5 years, I made decent money and was great, but I also was, only as good as my last flip or my last commission check. And I was like, man, I need to start building some passive and residual income. So I started shifting more from, flip two, buy one, hold one, flip two, hold one. And that kind of became my model. And then I kind of quickly realized that I was going to have to acquire a lot of doors in single family to get to the passive income goals that I wanted. And that kind of pivoted and shifted my focus more towards commercial real estate. So that led me to buy my first strip center, then my first medical office building, then my first hotel, my next hotel. And that kind of really got me into the ecosystem of wealth building through the vehicle of commercial real estate, which is where you find me at today, man.
That's awesome. What a fun journey. I'm sure there's a lot of stuff in there that you glossed over, but I
A lot
love
of war
the
stories in that path for sure.
I love the cat lady house, and that's crazy. You made 100 grand in your first flip. I made like $100 on my first flip. So I actually
I
I
got
did.
lucky.
Yeah, I swore off flips. I said I'm never going to do one of those again. And I what was probably the best thing that happened to me is I ran out of money. So I'm like, well, I got to start flipping houses again. But making 100 grand on that first flip, I mean, you had to be just like hooked right there. Like this is it.
Oh yeah. I
So
remember, at the time I was living at home with my dad. I basically was racking up a running bill on free rent with him and groceries because at the time, I was interning, I was working like 80, 90 hours a week for this guy. And, I had nothing else to do. So I was obsessed with real estate. I was obsessed with getting that momentum.
and you're in your
And I
early
remember,
20s here. You're like
yeah, I was
22, 23,
21,
21.
21. And I
Yeah.
remember after I got the contract signed, walking out of that woman's house and I started doing the Tiger Woods fist pump and I was, discount double check. I was just fired up and I remember getting in my car going, holy shit, I don't have any money.
How am
I've
I going to
never
pay
bought a
for this?
house before. How the hell am I going to buy this woman's house? But I always remember one of my first mentors telling me, you find a great deal and the money will find its way to the deal. And once I got that deal locked up, it really was a great deal. And so I was able to kind of put the a hard money first together on it. I, begged, pled, and borrowed money for the second and the holding costs.
Yeah.
And after paying out the first and the second, there was still about 106,000 left over after that. And that was really kind of my big aha moment of going, creative real estate is a very, beneficial thing to learn and understand and really kind of find a way to master that. And so, of the hundreds of houses that I've flipped, I would say I've probably only put my money into maybe less than five of them. Commercial real estate's a little bit harder to do that on, but I've also done it on commercial real estate as well. But it's definitely been, like you said, a lot of stepping stones and failing forward moments and just learning and, definitely some sleepless nights in there for sure. But I wouldn't have it any other way. Real estate and this industry and this vehicle has unlocked so many amazing, blessings and experiences for me and my family. And it's something that I'm very passionate about sharing with other people, very transparent about, my journey, my finances, and just trying to be an open book and something that can maybe inspire other people along the way, being that, I had so many great mentors and friends that did that for me. And so I've always found that, the barrel of monkeys, mentality is, one arm up, one arm down, always looking to elevate yourself, but always, trying to bring other people and pull them up with you along the way always seems to be a winning formula for creating more opportunity and impact.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. How cool was it that your mom at when you were, 12, 13 years old, maybe it wasn't cool at the time, but it's cool now. Like she brought you to these real estate conferences. You're listening to and how much mindset is being talked about. And then of course, like you said, they're talking about, and that's what you care about at 12 years old. Like you're not you maybe hearing the mindset stuff, but you're probably not soaking all of it in, right? But you're seeing the money and you're like, whoa, Well,
Yeah, it
this is
definitely was, impacting my sub, as I've gotten older and done a
yeah,
lot of
yeah, yeah,
personal development, looking back going, man, that subconscious programming that was, just
yeah.
by being in proximity and through
Just by
osmosis to
being
those
there.
conversations, definitely a net positive over the long run. And, probably more impactful on, my identity and my person as I am today than, trying to figure out strategically the X's and O's that, make you money.
Yeah, for sure. Um, your podcast, the one you've been doing it for 10 years, right? It's Millionaire Mindcast. Like, give a quick you know, what it's about. But I want to know throughout all these interviews that you've done, like what are maybe three key takeaways, three big things that you've taken from your podcast, interviewing all these people?
Yeah, the podcast, really started after I went to my first GoBundance event, which was, a Millionaire Mastermind group. That's where you and I, crossed paths and connected. And it was obviously a wealth building, financially freedom focused group, but not just about being, a killer in just your bank account, your finances, living like a millionaire in kind of all areas of your life. And when I went to that event, I think we all know these people. There's, what I call two different types of millionaires. And you have the millionaire that's an absolute killer, financially, they're crushing it and, living a very abundant life on that front. But they're really bankrupt in a lot of other categories of life,
Mhm.
like their marriages, like their parenting, with their health, their ability to, think beyond themselves and look at, making a contribution and impact in other people's worlds. And then there were the millionaires that, man, this person is absolutely crushing it financially, but they're
They
even
got it
more
all.
intentional and purposeful in their health and their
Yeah.
marriages. And so to me, that all-inclusive approach to living like a millionaire in all areas of your life really resonated on a lot of fronts with me. And I was like, man, I just want to, I think, I'm 36, so 26. Um, when I decided to do the podcast. And I'm like, I'm going to use this platform as one, a way to learn from other millionaires that are, kind of living that whole life approach. And, find a way to kind of elevate myself in that process, expand my network. But also, when I was in that room, I was like, I'm a pretty networked and, accessed type of individual. And if I'm seeing, my brain get blown out of the back of my head and these ahas are really smacking me upside the head, how many other people are not getting this kind of information? And this was really kind of at the beginning of the podcasting scene starting to get a little bit more
Yeah. Yeah. 10 years ago.
robust and popular. And so I use that as kind of a reason to kickstart the podcast and one, interview other business owners and people who have built wealth, not just in their bank account, but in other areas of their life as well, and how they've been able to do it, in a career, in a financial setting, but also kind of find and keep some of that counterbalance in the other areas of life. And I've always just been a student of life. I always say I'm a student of life and I'm always looking for my next teacher, whether that's somebody on a podcast, whether that's, one of my employees teaching me something, whether that's my daughters or, a grocery clerk, or somebody at a gas station, right? So just kind of being a naturally curious person and going to one of the things that, I've learned from other really, really successful people. It is this unquenchable curiosity to consistently show interest and desire in extracting wisdom and knowledge and value and also reciprocating it in other successful people. And, one of the things that I remember one of my early mentors teaching me, and I've seen this in so many other, really successful people as they've exercised their curiosity. It's almost this discipline, it's this law in their life that everybody has something to teach you, but it's your responsibility to find out what that is.
Oh, I love
And
that.
that was
Yeah.
something that Robert Herjavec, shared with me that he learned from his father. That when I asked him and interviewed him, and he said, one of the best things that I've learned and carried through in my own journey that has consistently served me and the people around me is that I make it my personal responsibility to find a way to learn from people and know that every single person has something that they can teach you. And so I thought that was really interesting. And I've
Yeah.
seen that quality and characteristic in most people, the people that, are the most successful, but not even just financially successful, the most impactful are the ones that get outside themselves and are constantly finding ways to learn and elevate and grow and bring more value. Some of the other things that I've learned,
Probably the
one thing
happiest
is
people too, right? I mean, when you talk to people that are happy, they're always curious, right? They're always trying to learn something, and it feels like they never have all the answers. The people that are, if in my opinion, like even if they're wealthy, they're miserable. They always know everything. That they
yeah,
just they know
100%.
all the answers, and that if you try to talk to them about something, they know it. But they're always miserable, right?
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
just a different aspect there. So yeah, love that. What,
Yeah,
sorry.
I would say another thing that, for me, I've really seen in most successful people is that they don't need to have all the answers.
Yeah.
They are big action takers. One of the mantras and mottos that I live by is that I'm dumb enough to believe in myself and smart enough to take action every day. And I think that kind of ties into the mantra and some of the qualities and characteristics I've seen in other really successful people is like they have this confidence in themselves to, really understand that they've got everything they need within them. They might not have all the answers right
Yeah.
now, but they're willing to take the risk and step into the uncomfortable and, the spaces of fear that usually prevent most people from taking action or needing the certainty, the comfort, the safety nets in place. And they know that through the action, they find the clarity, they find the answers. And really, a lot of them are just really great question askers and understand that, the quality of the question that you're asking, whether yourself or somebody else, is, the best way to find the answers that you're looking for. And so that was something that, always stood out to me. And another thing that I've really learned from a lot of other people is to not underestimate the power of being likable. There's a lot of people that aren't that smart, not that fast, not that strong, not that well capitalized or resourced. But if you're a likable person and you get around other successful people and in proximity to other successful people, they're going to put you in positions to get lucky or to win or to learn or to grow
Yeah.
or to
So
cash
true.
in on something big just because they like you,
Yeah.
just because they want to see you win.
Yeah.
And, I've kind of over the years, by asking lots of questions of like, what makes a person likable?
Yeah.
And the
That was my question.
formula, yeah, the formula that I've really boiled it down to is a couple different variables here. In this equation, I believe, and I'll just speak for myself, and we all know those people we've been around that after spending some time with them, you leave the conversation or you leave their presence and you're like, man, I really like that person. Like I feel energized around that person. They added value to me. I think I want to, stay in touch with that individual. I want to stay in proximity to that individual, right? And so what I have kind of boiled it down to is number one, most likable people, they have a sense of confidence about themselves, not cockiness, but just a sense of confidence in who they are and what they bring to the table. And that's something that, at the end of the day, leaders like seeing other individuals with confidence,
Yeah.
display that. But there's also paired with that confidence a sense of humility, right?
Yeah.
It's they're
Yeah.
not reading their own press clippings, they're not bragging all the time, they're not, always thinking that they're the best. And going back to that, earlier comment, right? Of like they're just always staying curious and humble and looking
Yeah.
for ways to grow and bring, value, right? Which leads into the third one, which is value. They're always looking to add value to other people. How can I help you? Right? Asking good questions, talking less about themselves and looking to inquire more about you and where they can close the gap and, connect the dots, right? So value is a big component of this. And then the last one is, pretty much a no-brainer, but anybody that's willing to work their ass off and has this, undeniable work ethic, if you're confident, but you're also very humble and you work your ass off and you look to bring value to people every single day, I always believe that that's a winning formula for being a very likable person. And you just can't underestimate the types of opportunities, conversations, relationships, doors that'll get open when you're a likable person. And I can say that from my own experience. There's been a lot of rooms or opportunities or deals that, I probably had no business or part of, being involved in
Yeah.
on paper,
Yeah.
but because people liked me, they gave me an opportunity, right? And
Yeah.
when you say where does luck and opportunity come into play. And, you know, that's ultimately what ties into a lot of people's success. You hear people say, "Oh, I got lucky," but at the end of the day, right, I think a lot of those variables are in their equation of success as well.
Yeah, I love that. And now I'm going to add one more, and it's just being genuine, right?
Yeah.
You can't
Yeah.
if
Authentic,
you try to
genuine.
pretend to be somebody else, it's not going to go well, right? You can pretend for a little bit, but
I was gonna say
eventually
you'll get exposed over time, right?
you're going to get exposed, and then the people that liked you all of a sudden don't trust you, and now it all goes away. So yeah, I love that though. I mean, be curious, be confident. I love it's true. You have to be confident, but you can't be arrogant, right? You have to be confident. You can't be arrogant. You got to have that humility. And sometimes those are hard things to put together, but I it takes practice, quite frankly. And when I look back, like that was probably the biggest thing I lacked in myself was just confidence. Like I had no confidence. I had plenty of humility, but I had no confidence, right? And it was I think a lot of just practice and mindset and like trying to really learn how to be confident and um and thoughtfulness in one of the things I would do. I'm a I pray, and so I literally would like pray for confidence because I knew I was like lacking confidence, and so
Yeah.
it's just this intention of I'm constantly telling myself I gotta be confident, gotta be confident. So if you're lacking in one of these things, that Matt just talked about, like be cautious about start thinking about it. How can I be more humble? How can I be more helpful? How can I be, you know, more curious? All those
Yeah.
things. Like kind of
You
questions can I start asking?
Yeah, you said some key things that stood out to me too that I think is really important to take note of. You know, some of the most successful people, and again, success, wealthy, rich, whatever you want to call it, like that's
Yep.
all a relative word, right? I think success goes far beyond your bank account. That being said, some of the most quote unquote successful people that I've seen in all areas of life are the people who just have the most awareness around where their strengths are and where their
Yeah.
weaknesses are. And they're really good through that awareness of doubling down on the things that they crush it in, and really good through that awareness of either identifying, how to close the gaps or how to fill in the gaps with other people who have those strengths in their life. And it's a perfect example. You hang around 9 or 10 other really confident people for a long period of time and just how they carry
So true.
themselves, you'll probably become the 11th, right? You
Yeah.
hang around a bunch of, negative, gossipy
Yeah.
whiners and complainers and bitter people, you'll probably become the 11th of that too, right? So, I think through awareness, you can create action plans, you can surround yourself with the right people, you can get rid of certain people. And I think that's ultimately what life is all about. It's not being on some linear path and thinking that you've got it all figured out. This is a never-ending journey that, the goalpost consistently keeps moving on based on where you're at in your life and what challenges you're dealing with and what, wins you're hitting. And I think it's just really important to create frameworks of awareness in your life so that way you can make the next right decision based on what you're trying to achieve and understand that, it's always going to be a work in progress.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, how many times do you go to a conference or some sort of event or just are hanging out with a few people that are just super positive, energetic? You just leave energized. You're totally
Yeah.
energized. It's the people you're around, like you said. If you're hanging around with 9, 10 confident people, like you're going to become the next one that's super
Yeah.
confident. You're going to become the next one that's super curious, or whatever you're looking for. So, love that. Um, let's talk about what you're doing today. So, commercial real estate, hotels. What do you have a flavor? Something you really like right now? Is it retail? Is it office? Is it hotel? Or do you have one that you like better than the other?
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of got a little bit of a diversified bag in my
Yeah.
portfolio. Some that are kind of slow and steady and are kind of my um, conservative cash flowing assets, and then I've got some of what I call my flyers, which are more of my big value at higher risk, higher reward type of assets, which ultimately are my hotels.
Okay. So you
Um,
kind of got
I
your base, that's your
Yep.
cash flow, and then you've got kind of your
Yeah, I got the
potential
slow,
high
steady
risk.
Eddie triple net type of, assets. I've
Yep.
got a handful of retail shopping centers and medical office buildings.
Yep.
And then, my hotels are more of my my flyer, a little bit riskier, a little bit more labor and management intensive. Well, really a lot more labor and
Yeah.
management intensive, but also a lot more upside and, kind of cash flow there. And there's some other, ancillary benefits and value that I pull off of those commercial assets than some of my other stuff. But as time went on and I continued to, top grade my portfolio and kind of reposition and 1031 and, I have been in and out of a lot of different asset classes and kind of learned where, I can mitigate some of my risk and do some of the more boring, slow growth, but cash flowing type of assets, other ones where we can really infuse, some sweat equity and some value creation into those assets. And my day-to-day focus is always, just consistently finding ways to, find value add opportunities, and, arbitrage, the value that we see, in terms of where an asset is at and through, our operational, chops and experience where we can create and stabilize the value in some of those assets. And so it's all around commercial real estate, on a day-to-day basis with myself and the team.
How, a lot of people will say, well, you gotta pick one. What's your answer to that? Why haven't you just said, okay, I'm gonna go hotels. I'm gonna all in on hotels. I got a niche
Yeah,
down.
I see a lot of value in picking just one. I'm what I call, opportunity and asset agnostic. So, when you get into commercial real estate, value creation, the framework is relatively the same.
Yep.
Now, operating wise, there are some caveats and nuances to operating storage facility versus a mobile
Versus
home park
yeah.
versus a hotel, right?
Yep.
So, understanding those aspects of it, honestly, I just learned by getting my ass kicked and, getting in the trenches and not knowing what I didn't know. But that's always kind of been my mentality and mantra is, again, be dumb enough to believe in yourself and smart enough to take action and trust that you'll figure it out along the way. If you buy right, if you mitigate your risk on the front end, usually if you can see it through, some peaks and valleys, right, you're always going to win long term no matter what. So
Yeah.
just being smart and conservative on that front instead of, where I see a lot of people try and get into something new, they get their ass kicked and then, they run away with their tail in between their legs and they never get an opportunity to come back and
Yep.
leverage those learning lessons into a bigger win is the fact that,
That's a
they
real loss right there, right?
massive,
Yeah.
massive. I mean, you're most people, are way too optimistic around their assumptions and their modeling. I always like to look at everything from a worst case scenario perspective and negotiate the absolute best deal I possibly can. Hence why, most of my assets are extremely opportunistic. I'll give you an example. I just closed on a 70,000 square foot shopping center earlier this year, and I got it for $12 a square foot. And
Seems
I
like a
bought
great
it for
price.
$1 million and it appraised at 2.7 as is when I closed on it.
Yeah.
Right. So it's hard to lose on an asset like that
Oh,
when you're being extremely conservative on the front end. And I've got a great value add plan on how we're going to create, and generate the income and appreciation upside on the back end, which ultimately is where, I'll get my big win in payday. But, so those are some of the things that I think, a lot of people feel like they have to stay in one particular lane. When you understand kind of the game that you're playing, and I equate it to, the first time I sat down to a chessboard, I kind of knew what, the puzzle, the pieces were and how they moved and what the strategy was, but I really didn't understand it. By the 50th time I played that game, I understood the game. I understood what I was playing, and relatively, while every opponent may be different, the framework is relatively the same, and you got to kind of meet the game where it's at as you're playing it, right?
yep.
So for me, that's how I've really approached my commercial real estate investment portfolio. And I'm a big believer that, if you get the right management group in place on a lot of these assets and operationally, you've got a great plan that you can execute on. You can pretty much apply that strategy to almost any commercial real estate asset. But that being said, I know people that, have stayed in retail their whole life and they absolutely crush it, right? Because their energy, their resources, their systems, their team, their strategy, it's very narrow, it's very focused, and it's very productive. I also know people that, have many different verticals of assets in their portfolio and they crush it as well. I think it really comes back to being a great operator, having a great plan,
Yeah.
being willing to pivot and adapt along the way very quickly. And those have been the things that have allowed me to, be successful with my hotels, with my other commercial real estate assets.
Yeah. I mean, great answer. That's exactly right. I mean, you could certainly niche down into one asset class and one location and one strategy and one
Yep.
property type and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's great. That's totally fine. You have a different portfolio and it can be successful the same way, exactly what you just said. And the other benefit of your portfolio, quite frankly, is that you're diversified too. And so you're
Yeah.
not, we get another COVID. Yeah, your hotels are going to suffer, but some of your commercial, your medical, that's not going anywhere. I mean,
Nope.
you're right. Your retail is likely not going anywhere. People still need to
Yep.
buy stuff. Like they still got to survive. So, uh, I love retail shopping centers, by the way. That's an awesome deal that you got there.
You and I
So
both.
sounds like, at least. I don't know the
It
deal.
is, yeah. I mean, we can dive into it if you want
Okay.
to, if we got time, or I agree though. Like there's some definitely some darlings of the market right now that are doing well. Retail is one of them.
Yeah.
And again, I think it's just understanding there's, just like there are economic cycles in a macro perspective, there are economic cycles in real estate as well. And, there are certain asset classes that do really well in certain aspects of the market cycle and some that don't, right? So
What do you like
I'm
right
always a
now
big
that's
believer
happening?
of just meeting the market where it's at.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you like right now? The markets, I mean, look at values have gone down. You look at multifamily, especially, but or office probably is the worst, right? Office is getting clobbered. Um, COVID really accelerated it, and then interest rates really accelerated. Put even more fuel on that fire.
Yep.
So there's certainly opportunities. What's your take on the market and where you're liking things?
I mean, I always think that there's going to be, a very insulated demand and desire for multifamily real estate. That's not something that has, ultimately been my preference, but I am a believer in multifamily. I don't think, especially for people that are looking to kind of break into commercial real estate and understand the mechanics of things. If you come from a single family background, it's just a really
Yeah,
good stepping stone and
natural fit.
segue and
Hmm.
and makes a ton of sense. And while I think I saw, the other day, median asking rent prices for new apartments in the US fell 6.2% year over year, and we're, seeing it at the lowest level since 2021. Again, if you look at the overall macro timeline that you're looking at this data on, we're here, it's still going to end up here, right? And it's just going to
Right.
keep going up. So I think, outside of some, cap rate expansion a little bit, depending on markets and oversupply and, what things look like in those particular areas, I think multifamily is always going to be a good one.
Hmm.
In terms of, retail, I think retail is a very, very strong, asset class, depending on, the type of retail center. If you're going grocery anchored or if you're going to, standalone, if you're doing, just a little neighborhood strip center, I just believe that, retail is not going anywhere. If you look
Yeah.
at, consumer sentiment and statistics, we are such a consumer driven country that if that goes away, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
So I'm
It's
betting
not going
on
away.
retail and consumerism,
Yeah.
over the long term.
Yeah.
And again, coming back to buying right and, structuring your leases properly and,
Yeah.
and just operating your asset properly, there's a lot of great ways to insulate retail assets. Again, medical office is something that I'm very bullish on. And, they're a little bit more nuanced and challenging to understand and to get tenants and to do,
Mm.
unique build outs. But once you get those things locked in, I've got a hospital in one of my plazas. We've got, dermatologies, pharmacies, we've got, plastic surgeons, and they're my easiest, most passive, and, best assets in a lot of
Yeah.
ways.
Yeah.
Um, So I think those are, really good assets right now. You can make the argument for industrial and storage. Here's the thing. I would say there's enough data out there to support anybody's bull sentiment, and there's enough data out there to, support anybody's bear sentiment. So I think again, it comes down to having a good plan, mitigating your risk on day one and how you buy the asset, and then just really being a great executor and operator. You don't need to be a rocket scientist to win in commercial real estate. Again, you understand how to play Monopoly. You figure out which properties to buy. You figure out how to manage and operate them well. And over time, you just hold for the long term and keep repositioning. It's really hard to lose.
Yeah, it is. And as long as you hit those things, I mean, you're going to be fine because it always, it's always going up, right? It's always going up. It has times where it goes down. Don't get me wrong, but it always over the long run goes up. I remember sitting in a real estate, class, and they're taught this is great recession. House prices have completely imploded, and the guy up talking is talking about how everybody. It's like, hey, listen here. I'm going to tell you this right now. Everybody sitting in this room, listen to me talk. You will see a time where every single home in the United States, unless it's falling down or needs to get bulldozed, it's going to be worth $1 million or more. And almost everybody started laughing. Like, and the people behind me, this couple behind me is like, we'll never see house prices get to where they were at the peak. This was in like 2009, right? 2009, 2010. Well, where are we at now? Now every house
We've
isn't worth $1 million, but it's
we've
worth
retraced that and then some.
exactly. And so
Yep.
that's the things. Yep, sure, we had this deep, very deep, but it's back up and it's back up much higher. And
Yeah.
that's real estate. And so if you can do exactly what you said and operate properly, you'll be fine. You'll be fine.
Yep.
What's a mistake that you've made? How have you learned from
Yeah, we don't have enough time for that, but
Just
I've
one
I've
mistake.
got I've got many mistakes over the years. I would say um one of the big mistakes that I made was, transitioning into development and
Mm,
thinking that just because I understood construction and house flipping, that I understood development, and really understanding if you're gonna, transition in just into a new space, going back to, staying humble, right? My confidence got the best of me there. And the humility side of me would have hired the right consultants and taken the advice and
yeah.
really not cut corners on those things. And so it was just a reminder that details matter, mentors matter, and that
Yeah.
every game that you belly up to, there could be hidden nooks and crannies within that. There's a model from a psychologist called the Johari window, and one of the quadrants of that is your blind spots. And for me, I'm always trying to find ways to identify my blind spots, because those are usually the areas that end up creating a lot of mistakes or heartburn or heartache for me. And so just understanding that if you're stepping into a new world and even a new level of the sandbox you're already playing in, that that saying of every level has new devils, it's so true. And so again, just coming back to that humility of going, my mindset is every day I start the day of going, I think I know everything I need to know, and yet at the same time I don't know shit. Therefore, I need to go in with eyes wide open every day, ask the right questions, surround myself with the right people. And one of my favorite, quotes that I live by is, winning isn't everything, but wanting to win is. And one of the ways that you can put yourself in the best position to win is to always surround yourself with the people that are smarter than you, ask the best questions, and ultimately put your best foot forward and leave all of the effort out on the floor. And so for me, that's what I try and do every single day, based on the activities and kind of the hurdles that I'm trying to get over and accomplish that day. And those have been the times when I haven't done those things that I've led myself to experiencing some financial heartache, or even losing quality team members or people, or things like that. Those are always great learning lessons that really force you to go back and reflect and get to the drawing board and find ways to kind of optimize and 2.0 yourself in the process. And so that's something that I'm always trying to keep, front and center anytime I'm, going after something big, because let's be honest, as entrepreneurs, as people that are wired the way we are, we get to the top of one summit and we're like, oh, that mountain over there looks good.
Yeah.
Let's go
Yeah.
check that one out. And how can I, put myself through more pain and strife
Yeah.
and struggle there? And that's just the way we're designed. But at the same time, if I can, be more effective and efficient as I'm going through those new journeys, I welcome that.
Yeah, and the mentor thing is huge. I mean, I look at any time I've tried to do something different, a little bit outside of the ordinary. The most success I've had is when I either partner with, people that have already done it, they've been there before, or I find mentors. I mean, we've got a great retail strip center right now. It's fantastic, and I could have went and done that by myself, but it wouldn't be what it is. I found people that are actually they found me, but I partnered with them because they know what they're doing and they're awesome at it and it works. I mean, that's so you're finding mentors, finding people to surround yourself with, so you can find your blind spots, right? And
Yeah.
not have the blind spots really.
As you get deeper down the path of entrepreneurship and just trying to build something meaningful, big, successful, whatever that looks like for you in your own journey, you really do understand and get the meaning behind standing on the shoulders of giants, right?
Mm,
And there are so many people that have allowed me to stand on their shoulders and have launched me to a level that I wouldn't have been able to get to myself, or that, have allowed me to tap into their network that took them 20 years to build, tap into their reputation that took them 30 years to build, tap into their capital partnerships or their own capital that I didn't have access to.
yeah. Yeah.
Even sometimes just, having somebody lend you some confidence that they see in you
Yeah.
that maybe you don't see in yourself
Yeah.
as you're navigating new territory and terrain, right? Like that that quote of standing on the shoulders of giants holds so true. And so I'm always just auditing like who's in my world, who do I need to get into my world. I always love, the kind of quote of millionaires think about what do I need to do next, billionaires think who do I need to know next.
Mm,
And when you think about it in the context of life, not just financial success, but whether that's taking your marriage to the next level, that's figuring out how to be a better father or mother, that's figuring out how to take care of your health better. It's always usually a who answer than a what answer. The who generally unlocks the what, and oftentimes
yeah.
the who can get the what done for you without you needing to do it yourself. So,
Yeah.
I really look at the networking and the relationship component as being probably one of the areas or zones that I focus most of my effort and time in, because one, it's a great way to learn and expand yourself, but two, it's just a really great way through the right relationships to be able to add value to other people and make connections. And it's just so much more rich and fulfilling when you're doing
Yeah.
life with
So
people that you
good.
feel aligned with and that you really care about.
Yeah. Oh man, so good. So good. Uh, we gotta wrap up here. I got a lot more I want to talk to you about, but what's your favorite book?
I don't have a favorite book, honestly. I read a lot of different books. So really it's more of what I'm trying to solve for in that moment. I mean,
Yeah, I'm the same
obviously,
way.
some of the staples I think about, one of my favorite books being, The Alchemist, and just kind of the giving people the permission to dream and to, to really have a fantasy for what your life and your vision can be, and just going on that journey and, exploring what that can look like. That was one of the first personal development books that I read that
Mm,
really just gave me permission to go out and dream and explore. The other one is probably not a common book that most people talk about, but it hit me in the right moment of my life where I was really, I had been arrested. I was facing some pretty significant consequences, and it was called The Gift of Imperfections. And ultimately, it was a book by Brene Brown, and it was a book that hit me in a moment in time that gave me permission to just be more of myself instead of trying to be somebody that I thought I needed to be or that I really wasn't deep down inside. And it allowed me to get more in alignment with my values and who I am at my core, and just really lean into who is Matt, and how can I bring more of that to the world. And going back to your comment earlier of like authenticity and genuineness, instead of being a fraud, being, a true mirror and reflection of who you are on the inside and on the outside. That was a really big, impactful book for me. And it just created so much more room. It let me to be myself, but also to let people that weren't aligned with that version of me go. And it made a ton of room for the people who were aligned with that version of me come into my life. So that was a really big one. I love Traction from the perspective of that's what we run our businesses off of.
Yeah, yeah,
It's just a great operating system and book for
yeah.
people that are, looking to really be tactical about, how you operate your business. But I've got a lot of different books. I mean, I'm reading right now. I think it's let me pull it up real fast. It is The Lords of Easy Money. And it's essentially all about kind of the
Mm,
Fed and
mm.
quantitative easing and understanding more about the economy and how this whole, crazy machine was set up. So just constantly, I call it info sponging, always looking for ways to, soak up information on a daily basis. And usually for me, it's always very curated and specific around a very niche topic
Yeah.
or skill or strategy that I'm trying to build or learn more
Something
about.
you're trying to improve on. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I'm the same way. I like it. I don't know about you, but there's plenty of times where I start to read a book and I just put it down because it's like this isn't resonating with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
something I'm not even thinking about right now. And so I put that book down, I put it away, and then I'll maybe pick it back up a year later or 2 years later. Sometimes I'm like, this is the best book I've ever read before.
Yeah.
It's like, but
Yeah, I
it
mean,
wasn't
different parts
talking
of
to
the
you at that
journey
time.
resonate at different times.
Yeah,
I will say, I spend a lot of time on ChatGPT these days, so
yeah.
that's definitely something that myself and my team have leaned into very heavy over the last year and a half ish, and is
Do you have the
something.
paid version then?
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I've been told I got to get the paid version of it. I've been too cheap. I need
20
to do a
bucks a
chat.
month, it's
It's
worth it.
amazing. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Last question. Three pillars of wealth creation. What are your three pillars?
Number one is, experiences over things. That's something that we live by in our family is, part of one of the reasons why I love hotels so much is, I can't necessarily take my daughters to, the liquor store in my shopping center or the dog washing place, in my shopping center, one of my
Yeah.
medical office buildings, but I've created a ton of epic memories and experiences with my kids going to the hotels, teaching them about entrepreneurship and business and real estate investing. And oh yeah, we get to go to the beach today as well. And so that's something that obviously is extremely important to me. Tied in on that vein is just around family values and legacy, to create a foundation and to carry on a foundation or a legacy that, so many people in your lineage have worked hard to create. And if you're the first to do it in your family, even better, right? But if you have been fortunate enough and blessed to have, great people come before you that have sacrificed and worked so much and instilled great things in you, and you can, 2.0 that, 3.0 that, I really believe in the importance of, the family unit and having strong values and, having a foundation that, future generations can benefit and grow from. And so, that doesn't just have to be passing along money, right? And
Yeah.
generational
Yeah.
wealth that can be passing along, good habits, good disciplines, impact, and just good people.
Yeah.
And then the last one, of course, is, thinking about the vehicles of real estate, for me, it's just playing the long game. I'm a big believer in the crock pot, mindset versus the microwave mentality, and understanding that even though this life is very short, it's also very long and a lot can be accomplished in it. And when you really go and approach things through a long-term, outlook, and this is a marathon made up of many strategic sprints, it gives you permission to kind of play life in the long game. And I think that there's a lot of value and wealth that could be created in so many different facets of
Yeah.
life when you're looking at it through the long game lens. So for me, crock pot over the microwave mindset, very, very important. And, just being somebody that I always say is, there's so many people that I know that, have achieved success over a long period of time for the sole fact that they just didn't quit. They just had stamina. And when I think about life, life is exhausting. It can be, depending on what season you're in, it can be really heavy. It can be really hard. It can be really challenging. But it's the people who have the grit and the stamina to just keep putting one foot in front of the other every single day that are ultimately the ones who win. And winning obviously is, different in every context for every person. But, those are some of the things that I think create wealth and are my pillars of wealth creation is, some habits and some discipline. Some are going to be strategic, intangible, and others are going to be, vehicles of wealth building. But those are the things that come to mind for me when you ask that question.
I like talking about, go to the retail. So it was last week we took the kids to the zoo, and then right next to the zoo is a shopping center that I have, and they had there was a Lego store there. So I took my kids there. We went and looked at everything and the whole strip center and go to the Lego store. Then there's X Golf, which is indoor golfing. Go there, hang out there, and then go down and get some meat at the butcher shop. So it was really cool. The kids got to see like what, I own, and got to kind of experience a little bit of it and have some fun because my son got some Legos and they hung out. And so it was a good time.
That's amazing, right? Experience. That's an
Experience.
experience over a
Yeah.
thing, and
Yeah.
so I
100%.
love those kind of things, and I think good leaders, good parents, good people are always trying to find make a memorable moment and
Yeah.
experience for somebody versus just giving them something.
Yeah. Yeah. Love that. Matt, really appreciate you. Appreciate your time. How can our listeners get in touch with you?
Best way to get in touch is either, on social media. My handle is the same on all. Put out a lot of content at official Matty, Mattya. Or if people are interested in commercial real estate investing and, the mastermind group and some of the, programs and stuff that we have, they can always head over to the wiseinvestorcollective.com. And we got a lot more information and, valuable resources there.
Yeah, and check out the podcast, Millionaire Mindcast, and it's on every whatever you're listening to this on, it's on. So check
Yep.
out that too. Of course, after you listen to mine, listen. No, just
Absolutely. Yeah. Todd's, of course, takes the top of the
no.
totem pole.
But it's a great podcast and tons of good episodes. I mean, you can go back, archives a lot and listen. There's a lot of good stuff on there. So, Matt, I really appreciate you and appreciate the time. You have a fantastic rest of the day.
Back at you, Todd. Thanks, man.
Hey, thanks so much for listening. I appreciate you being a loyal listener. I would love to have you go on to our Facebook page and subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. Go on to iTunes or wherever you listen and give us a rating and review. Don't forget to subscribe. Your rating and review just helps us push this out to more and more people and continue to grow our audience and hopefully positively affect a ton of people out there that really need this and want this. So the other thing I've got for you is a free ebook on my website. So go on to venturedproperties.com, and download our free ebook on real estate and on syndication. And I've got some data points in there, some really good stuff for you. So I'd love to have you take a look at that. It's free. I'm not expecting anything from it. And also, look, if you want some help in multifamily, want some help learning, growing, getting your business off the ground, I would love to talk to you about what it would look like to work with me potentially and see if that's a good fit. So you can go to coachwithdex.com and check that out. And we can definitely have a call. Thanks a lot for listening. You make it a fantastic rest of the day. I'll catch you on the next episode.